This is my first biome. 17 rooms in a straight line. This over here is the same biome after I fixed it. Same rooms, same enemies, same story, completely different shape. The first version was a hallway. The second is a place. This episode is about how I saw that difference and why I had to stop coding to see it. So, think about the Forgotten Crossroads in Hollow Knight. You can look at the map and point to where you are, with the grub cluster in the upper right, the arena on the bottom left, the temple in the center, and that shape is the arena, is the identity. You can build a mental map out of that place. My biome was just a hallway, as you can see. 17 rooms left to right, village, forest, shrine. On the map, that would be a straight line, a 17:2 aspect ratio. You can't build a map out of a hallway. You just know how far along the hallway you are. And there was a worse problem. The climactic moment of the entire biome, which is the torch blessing at the end of the shrine, happens at the far right end. After that, the player has to backtrack through all 17 rooms to get back to the village. The emotional payoff followed by 17 rooms of content you've already cleared. And in a metroidvania, a biome that reads as a corridor isn't a biome in a metroidvania. It's a level in a platformer. And this is a layout that I was pretty set on, actually. I thought it was pretty good until I built this tool. This is a tool I built, and it just allowed me to see all the rooms side by side. And it just made me realize that this layout right here was crap. Um, and this was invisible in my design documents. I had a 400 line document describing every room in this biome in detail, with the enemies, the encounters, narrative beats, and not one line told me that the shape of the biome was wrong. I needed to literally see it. And in the last 2 weeks, I've been working on the engine code with the bridge architecture, config loading, and debug tools. I was at layer 0 of a 6-layer implementation plan, and I hit a point where the motivation for code just wasn't there. It wasn't a wall. I knew what I needed to do next. I just couldn't make myself care about the debug tool that was next on in line at 10 p.m. and that just carried through. Um, and so I've had forestall projects, as I mentioned before, and they've taught me that when you just try to grind through something, it doesn't work with the way my brain works. So I decided that I could afford to stop doing some code and switch to doing design work. And so I spent 3 days building a tool with AI to lay out the world visually with the rooms, connections, the whole structure, which is this tool on screen. And the first thing I did after I had a lot of bug fixing worked out was layout biome 1. And the moment I saw 17 rooms in a line, I knew this is a problem. This is not what I need. This is not a good biome. So the fix. So this is more of a U shape with the village at the top, and then you descend. If I get out of the way, you can see, actually, if I move things, you can see you descend down the forest on the left arm, and then the shrine ascends the right arm, and the lion arena sits at the bottom, the hinge where descent becomes ascent. So, one of the a lot of the spatial shape changed the emotional shape of my game. So you still wake up in room 1B. That was always the plan. So you don't start the game at the leftmost edge of the map. You start in the middle. If you head right, which feels really natural in a Metroidvania, you come across this cliff face, which you don't know there's anything there. It's just a cliff. Um, and so you have to traverse through the rest. You now need to go the other direction, go through the village, and then you come across the forest edge, which is room 2A. Um, and so basically, the forest is descent. Every room is harder. The world gets darker, wilder, more hostile, while the shrine is an ascent, where you're climbing through sacred architecture, where each floor is more intact than the last. And the hinge at the bottom with the lions fight is the emotional low point. And the torch here in the summit in the inner sanctum is the high point. And so it's a descent into danger, ascent through sacred space, and the architecture tells the story. Um, and there's a lot of reworking that I had to do along the way. So I had to rework my plan for the forest edge. It actually incorporated a bit of the original plan for 1A back when it was a cliff face with a cave. But yeah, um, now it's reworked. 2B had to be reworked because originally it split into two paths and had two entrances into 2C. That doesn't work very well when the entrance is at the top. When you're going in through the side, that can work pretty easily, but from the top, it does not. Um, and now 2C is this huge room that's all about parkour and dealing with combat at the same time. And you're introduced to a new enemy at the same time as you have to deal with this new style of room. Um, but then it's like 2D, 2F, and then 2E didn't change at all. Neither did 2A, 3A, I mean. Um, 3B didn't really change. There's some added stuff to take up. So you can see that this dash box saying there's the Forgotten Construct quest line rooms. That's post demo content. It's just I wanted to not have empty space. So that's just how I could have this loop and yet fill the empty space eventually. Um, so the natural order is the first room you explore is the cliff face 1A, which is a dead end. You dismiss it, move on. And then when you get all the way back when you get all the way to Philemon's chamber, 3F, you break a wall after fighting him, and all of a sudden you step out and you're at that cliff face that previously was just a wall you could not pass. Um, and so that dead end is there from the very beginning. You could find it in the first 5 minutes of play. In fact, if you don't find it in the first 5 minutes of play, it means you probably started progressing the intended direction. And so basically it's the shrine was inside the cliff by the village the entire time, with the dead end being the exit. And the loop closes the architecture with no need for a teleporter or a cutscene. You walk through a wall and you're back where you began. Um, and that moment only works because the biome has a shape to it. In the hallway version, there's no loop to close. You have to walk all the way back, and that's incredibly tedious. You spend a couple hours working your way to the shrine and through the shrine. All of a sudden, now you have to walk your way back, and it's not very fun. Um, and so a lot of the content survived. Very little of it had to change. So there's no new enemies. There's very few new encounters. The onboarding didn't change. Um, what changed is where they sit in space. Um, and the design was right, but the layout was wrong for the most part. Um, so the lesson that I've learned is as a solo dev is you can't grind on one track for forever. If you only have one track that you can work on, you'll eventually get burnt out. And so a game has more than one track you can traverse. You can code, you can do design work, and you can build tools to help you with design work. They all feed each other. So when motivation on one stalls, switching to another isn't procrastination. It's how your project stays alive. And it's definitely how my project stayed alive. Because I'm reaching the point where I'm about a month and a half into seriously working on this game, and I'm probably 2 to 3 times further than I've ever been on any other game I've tried to make because I've gone the, because I have the ability to switch freely to and fro. it makes it a lot easier for my project to stay alive. Um, and so the fact that I spent 3 days working on a tool um, isn't a waste. It found a problem that I had for a few weeks, and I didn't know I had the problem. So the code is waiting, but the design is better because I took the detour to work on a tool to allow me to visualize my world better. So just where I'm at. So layer zero of my architecture is almost done. I have debug tools and verification left. Um, and then it's on to layer one. And that's where a character on screen happens where you can move it. And I'm not going to put a timeline on it. It will happen when it happens. And I'll be here and I'll post when it does. Or at least hopefully the next post will be about it. Um, anyways, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.